Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. This is my second video now, and if you haven't seen me before or if you're new here, my name's Charlotte and I'm going to be doing mental health videos and talking about mental health and in hope that it helps, someone. So yeah, if you're new here, please subscribe. That sounds so desperate. Please subscribe, and if you like the video, give it a like. Today we are going to be talking about accepting your diagnosis, your mental health diagnosis. I thought I would start from the beginning. So yeah, I've wrote up a list of 10 tips that helped me when I first was diagnosed with BPD. That was my biggest diagnosis. I've been diagnosed with other things in the past, but accepting my borderline personality disorder was my biggest challenge, and I wrote these tips and hope that it helps someone accept them. Okay, so let's get started. My first tip is do not panic. Okay, so it's so hard to freak out and to get overwhelmed and to think, oh, I've been diagnosed with this. It's really scary and it's really overwhelming. And so my first tip is not to freak out. It will be okay. Everything will be okay, and you just need time just to accept the diagnosis and just to let it go in. So my first tip is to don't freak. Tip 2 is to let it all sink in. So like the first one, so just let it sink in, accept it, take time for yourself, look after yourself when you've first been diagnosed, practice self-care, and yeah, let it sink in. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to sink in. So when I was first diagnosed, I was really happy. I was over the moon that I got a diagnosis, and I thought this is the best thing. And then a few months later, it hit me like a brick wall. It was really hard, and I think I didn't let it sink in. I think I was too excited that I was diagnosed and that I was gonna get better and there was answers, but I didn't actually take time for myself and think, how does this make me feel and how do I feel? And I think that's really important. My third tip massively helped me. So when I was first diagnosed, I had no idea what borderline personality disorder was. I had absolutely no idea. To the extent of my knowledge was bipolar, and still I didn't have a great knowledge of that. So the first thing I did, well, the first thing that my mental health nurse advised me to do was to research. She gave me a ton of really good books to read. She advised that I read, it was BPD for Dummies. At first I was like, okay, but it was really helpful. Basically, the third tip is to educate yourself on it, but use useful information. Use information that is reliable, that is facts and not opinions. Avoid as much as you can social media blogs that are negative. Avoid Tumblr that is negative, and any other forums or anything that can be negative, because as much as there is really good information out there and a lot of support for people that have got a diagnosis, there is also a really bad downside where you'll get people who insult you or go along with this stigma that's attached, or people that will complain and make it worse and make you feel worse, and that's just something that you don't want, especially when you've just been diagnosed. So my third tip is to do your research, but to avoid all negative content if you can. Tip number 4 is to try your hardest to be self-aware. This can be really hard, especially when you just get into grips with a diagnosis. So my biggest tip was to accept how you feel and to understand that you react the way that you do, potentially because you have a mental health condition. So at the beginning, before I was diagnosed, I was saying I hate myself because I've reacted like that, I reacted like this, I shouldn't do that, I'm a horrible person, when in fact it was because I had a mental health condition that was undiagnosed and untreated. So my biggest tip is to be self-aware. So when you react to a situation, when you react to information or anything, just understand that you do have a mental health condition. Don't use it as an excuse, but do understand that you do have a mental health condition and that it's okay to react the way that you did, and to be self-aware, and then take that information into the next time that something happens in hope that it helps you in the future, but also to stop this self-hatred, and to stop putting so much pressure on yourself, because I feel like that's a massive problem. 5 is that your diagnosis is not you. You are not your diagnosis. Your diagnosis is a very, 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 very small part of you. It doesn't make you. Your symptoms are not your personality. It's not. And 2 people with a mental health condition are not the same. So don't feel like because someone else has the same diagnosis as you that you have to, that you're not as bad or that you're better or anything like that, or you're worse. It doesn't matter. No 2 people with the same diagnosis are the same. People have different symptoms and people react differently, and people have had a different experience in life. Your diagnosis is individual to you, so don't compare yourself to anyone else with the same diagnosis. Tip number 6 is to talk to your doctor. So when I was first diagnosed, I was just overwhelmed. So I did not speak to my psychiatrist at the time when I was diagnosed, and that was my biggest regret. After I booked in again a few months later and got all of my questions out, I had so many questions. I asked what treatments were available, what medication is best, if I need to change my medication, what is going to happen in the future, is this long term? All of these questions I had, and they were all answered by my doctor, and I think that was a massive weight lifted off my shoulders. Your GP, your psychiatrist, your doctor is the best person to ask if you have any questions, and that is my biggest yes. Your tip number 7 is to remember that your mental health does not stop you from reaching your goals, achieving your goals, or even having goals. You can still do exactly what you wanted to do in life before your diagnosis. It might be a little bit harder, there might be a different route that you need to take, but they can still be achieved. You can do absolutely anything regardless of your diagnosis. Okay, tip number 8 is to do things your way. So if you find out what works for you, so find out what helps you. The whole process of just being diagnosed is very trial and error, especially when you're learning your diagnosis, especially when you just started therapy or whatever path you go through. Find out what helps you relax, find out what helps you with your symptoms. So for me, a few years ago, when I was at my worst, my biggest help was to go to the gym. I was really, really struggling with like depression, anxiety. I had all these angry feelings. I didn't know how to express it. So my way of expressing it was to go to the gym. I would run on the treadmill, I would throw this massive tire, and now I don't even work out, but at the time it really, really helped me. Now we go for family walks, we go for big walks, and that helps me. You will find out what helps you with your mental health condition, and it's all trial and error, but you will get there. And as soon as you get there, make sure you take a note of it. So when you feel depressed, when you feel anxious, or when you are struggling, you can say, this helped me last time and I'm going to do that, and it's your way. Number 9 is to decide who you are telling, which sounds really really bad, considering that I'm all for talking about mental health and reducing stigma, but some people will help you. You will find that some people will really, really want to help you and really want to understand your diagnosis, and you will equally find people that will be negative, that will give you negative opinions, and that will just dismiss how you're feeling or your diagnosis. Don't tell them. Basically, you have to decide who you are telling, and it's completely up to you who you tell and who you think it's appropriate to tell. You will find that in people in your life that you can go to talk to, and you will equally find that people you can't talk about mental health to, and that's okay. You will find someone who you can speak to, and just make sure that person that you tell you are struggling, you've got a mental health condition, you think will react well. Because I think a massive factor to my recovery has been to talk to people that I expect will be positive when I speak about mental health, that will be understanding, and not to empty my everything into people that don't understand. I think that has been a massive thing in my recovery. Tip number 10 is that everything will be okay. You now have an answer, you now have a diagnosis, and this is a massive step. From now, your recovery journey begins. You can still be you regardless of this, and that everything will be okay. Even though it's really, really overwhelming to get diagnosed at first, and it's a massive shock, this is the start of your recovery, and this is the start of healing. Just remember that everything will be okay, regardless of what diagnosis you have or how you're currently feeling. Everything will be okay. So yeah, I really, really hope that helped someone out there, I know that it was really, really overwhelming when I was diagnosed. I've noticed that I say really, really a lot now. I really hope that this video helps at least someone, and if you are recently diagnosed or if you're struggling accepting a diagnosis, I hope that this helped. If you like this video, please can you give it a like and subscribe and comment. Just do absolutely everything with this video that you possibly can, because, you know. Thank you.